It's Wednesday, June 3rd, 2019, and this is the Pro and Con Show. My name is Michael James Ott, and I am your host. The intent of the show is to look at some of the issues facing us through the different streams of news, the different streams of information, that's a better way to put it, that come to us, and the hope is that my talking about them and trying to point out some of the sources of the bias that comes, and also encouraging you to be more proactive in your understanding of the issues. This would behoove us all. And today, so normally go through the headlines in the different news streams or information streams. It's a better, again, I should be careful. So, because the problem is that the news, the actual factual news, the who, the what, the where, and the when, this occupies, well, to the degree that most of us care, this occupies maybe 30 or 60 minutes of time a day. And then the rest of it, which fills the airwaves and fills the web pages, is a bunch of content, because there's all that blank space on the web page, or there's all that airtime, 23 or 23 and a half hours of airtime, and whether you're trying to fill a web page, you're trying to fill the airtime on a network. Well, this is, the news isn't going to last that long, so you got to come up with something, and the cheapest, easiest way to fill that time is to fill it with opinion and bias. And that's what most of us are seeing. Well, that's what all of us are seeing if you watch the various networks, or if you're looking at these different web streams of information. And so the other key thing, and so I'm going to talk today mostly about leadership. I wanted to talk a few things about leadership. So one of the first things that really good leaders do is they don't just, someone says, well, this fact is true. Here's a new fact. Here's something just happened. And the idea is that, well, Mr. Politician or Mr. Leader immediately react to this. Well, very often, almost always, whoever this person is that's being asked, this leader is being asked to react to this, they're not completely informed on the entire situation of this. So the who, the what, the where, and the when, and the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and against, yet they're expected to make some kind of reaction. And the right reaction would be, of a good leader, would be, sorry, I'm not going to, start talking about that until I have more of the facts. And I understand that this might frustrate you, but tomorrow or the next day, please ask your questions about this then, and I will talk about them then, because I need to gather the facts. So, in the headlines over the last day or two, Paul Manafort, who was convicted of various crimes, and he's in jail, and he's probably going to be convicted of even more. He is being tried, or they're wanting to try him in the state of New York now, and he's not in a prison in the state of New York, and so the district attorney is wanting him brought to the state of New York, and they're talking about putting him in Rikers Island. Now, Rikers Island is, it has a reputation for being a pretty rough prison. And Mr. Manafort will be brought in, and then there's concern over that. He's so-called a white-collar criminal, and does he deserve to go into an institution that's, has some of the most hardened, violent criminals that we have in this country are at Rikers Island. but the problem is that he needs to be nearby for the New York courts to go through their process of having the trials and forming whether they acquit him or convict him of these charges that are against him. So it's kind of a necessary evil that he goes somewhere in the state of New York so that he's close by so that this trial process can proceed. So here's the thing is that he will end up going to Rikers Island, but if I read it correctly, the warden said he will be, because of who he is and how well known he is, he will be segregated. It won't be solitary per se, but he won't be around other prisoners because they realize that Rikers is a pretty rough place, and they don't want this fellow that probably can't stay on his own in the prison yard, having to do that much interface kind of stuff. Well, this has become, well, he's going to be thrown in solitary confinement, and that's a different thing. Solitary confinement is, at least what I read, was different from this, in that it's a small cage basically with solid walls, and you don't see anything, and you're there and unable to be around anyone, and there's also, I think, generally less things to do. There isn't like a television to watch, that kind of stuff. So I think there's a difference. And then just to kind of continue with this, the leadership finding out all the facts first. So we have Fox News. No, is it? Yeah, Fox News wanted to show, and it says even. So again, inflammatory language. But Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, so AOC, so she's the young Democrat that was a surprise winner in the elections. You got to be kidding me. Well, anyway, we'll finish it. So Facebook Live again is having issues. So anyway, we'll finish this. So anyway, she tweeted that Paul Manafort is being sent to solitary confinement in her district, and a prison sentence is not a license for government torture and human rights violations, and that's what solitary confinement is. And Manafort should be released along with all people being held. So she's a Democrat. She's not normally very supportive of Mr. Trump and his entourage, of which Mr. Manafort was one. But she's saying, she's reacting, in my view, that this isn't necessarily solitary confinement. It's going to be temporary while he's going through these trials. So it could last some weeks, but that's it. So it is a little bit different, and in my view, she should take a little bit of time here to figure that out. And again, just a point about leadership. So other things about leadership is that you need to, gather the facts before you start forming opinions. Gather the facts. So that's one thing that great leaders do. The second thing great leaders do is I'm sorry. The second thing that great leaders do is they encourage people to act on the whole as a team. And so years ago, I was on a submarine. I had to go from one submarine to another because I was in a submarine in overhaul, and I needed to go to one that was operational so I could go back and do more things to the submarine in overhaul to be more supportive of the crew there. And when I went to this temporary position, the captain got called to the officers' mess. It's not a huge room, but a place where the officers have their meals. And the captain said, "Oh, hey, Lieutenant, have a seat." And I said, "It's very nice to meet you, sir." And so we sat down, and he said, "Have you heard the phrase, if you aren't trying to solve the problem, you're part of the problem?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I think I've heard words to that effect." And he got all agitated. He had big black eyebrows and a big black mustache, and he started hitting his hands on the desk or on the table, and he said, "I think that's a bunch of BS." He said the full words. I'm not going to do this. I intend these to be mostly a family thing. Anyway, if you're not trying to solve the problem, Lieutenant, you are the problem. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Well, I was really taken aback by what he had said, and it was kind of trying to absorb it, but I was afraid really to say anything else. So I said, yes, sir, I think I do." And he said, "Well, that's good. So let the executive officer know if you need anything else, and I look forward to working with you on this patrol." And so it was only after I thought about that later on that it became clearer and clearer what he was trying to get at. What he was saying was, in his experiences, if people are working on the problems, the problems get resolved. In other words, problems only exist because we don't work on them. So, and this was a pretty powerful message for a leader, the captain of the submarine, to sit with. And he said he calls in every, kind of left this out of the story, he calls in every new member of his crew, and he has this discussion with them to try to encourage them to act like a team, and to be constantly looking for solutions to the problems, not just identifying the problems, but finding solutions for them. And it's 30, 40 years later, and I still, over the course of my life, I have come to really appreciate that he was absolutely right. That the problems that we face are problems that we can solve, and we just need to work on them, and we need to work on them together. The last thing that I wanted to talk about as far as leadership is leadership is about convincing other people that they want to follow you. I've mentioned this in some of the past shows, that this is an area where Mr. Trump falls flat on his face, and so no matter who you are, if you're a leader of people, you have to take the time to say, okay, there's this problem, let's say, and you think that there's a correct solution. Well, the way to lead people is to understand and teach and mentor and communicate and speak with, and on and on and on. The people that need to do this, you need to speak with them, communicate with them, encourage them to support whatever it is that is the appropriate thing going forward. And the other thing that real leaders understand is that those ideas aren't just theirs. It's some of the best ideas in fact, most of the best ideas are going to come from someone else in your group, or even someone outside. The best ideas are the best ideas. They very rarely come from the leader, himself or herself. It comes from somewhere. It's just the best idea. And then, talking about this stuff with the people and talking about the good and the bad, the for and against, the pro and the con, and all the facts around this, and taking the time to get to a place where, yes, it would seem like there's some consensus here that this is the best path forward. Then you're not impressing upon them that these things need to be done. They're following. They're saying, we understand and we want to support and go forward with you. So these are the three areas that great leaders really do a great job in. And hopefully there's an election in November 2020, and hopefully someone with these kinds of characteristics will find their way into the White House. And it's my hope that you and I certainly am going to try to vote for someone that'll do that. I hope that you will too. Okay, it's Wednesday, June the 5th, 2019, and this has been the Pro and Con Show. Bye for now.